It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Chris, and this show is guaranteed to have between 0 and 1 parasite. Thank you so much for listening today. How the heck are you? I appreciate you being back here for the little podcast that could for another fun season. Would you believe we actually got some July 16th news that matters? It's subject to debate how much it matters, but in the NFL in July, we'll take every little bit we can. If you were listening along last week, you heard Jim McCormick come on the show, and we talked about training camps for teams in the NFC South, and I was probably a little bit adamant, like, no, man, I really don't think Alvin Kamara is coming back to the Saints. And I probably made Jim frame his preview of Travis Etienne through that lens. And then, lo and behold, we got the news that Thursday, in fact, I am a doofus. That part wasn't news, but the other news was Alvin Kamara will be back with the Saints, albeit he took a significant haircut, something like $6 million less. I guess, the point was that there was no way Kamara would be back at his contract number, which that was true. But Kamara wanted to be in New Orleans. He's definitely a franchise icon, and we are now forced to contend with a 2026 season that has, at least until someone gets injured, both Etienne and Kamara in the same backfield. Also, it lets me play this.
Bitchin' Kamara!
So, revisiting the question of what Saints storylines will be worth keeping track of in training camp, does the Etienne-Kamara split go into that hopper? I think probably yes. Truthfully, Kamara was still already on the pay attention to me list that Jimmy and I came up with for that division on that show last week, even though I really did think we'd probably be paying attention to him somewhere else, and he would go somewhere where there was a clearer, bigger role. But anyway, he's not. In New Orleans, the problem is that, for the purposes of actually knowing anything, I'm fairly certain Kellen Moore is not going to gather the beat reporters around him after a day of training camp and say, all right, boys, here's exactly how I plan on deploying Etienne and Kamara. So I'm a little skeptical that big info is going to be forthcoming. What I expect is, Etienne obviously gets run with the ones, but then they put Kamara out there some too. Both guys look amazing. Hey, even Kendre Miller seems to be coming back from his knee. Devin Neal is a good backup. They really got this running back room on lock. But I will definitely allow for the possibility that we get news that feels different from that. Something like, I don't know, Kamara's kind of just getting treated like another backup. This is obviously Etienne's gig. Kamara's talking about how, I don't play that much, but I'm happy to help the new guy, and maybe I'll be in there for a couple third downs. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but I'll allow for the possibility. And why does it matter? I made a change in the ranks. Upon this news yesterday, I did drop Etienne a few spots in the running back ranks. He's down at RB19 standard. Actually lower than that, 20 PPR. That's updated in the running back ranks at harrisfootball.com because knee-jerk, while yes, there are precious few running backs who get anywhere near an NFL team's full workload anymore, only 2 running backs had more than 80% of his team's carries last year, Jonathan Taylor, Ashton Genty. Even having a really good year last season in Jacksonville, Etienne only had around 70%. So it's not going to be breaking news to me that the Saints might not give Etienne the truly massive workload, and I'm not sure they would have, even Kamara had left. But I have to admit, if the quote-unquote someone else was Kendre Miller and Devin Neal, how could you not feel a little more secure? Alvin Kamara has a legit great career behind him. He didn't look great last year. I thought he slowed down. I watched more tape yesterday. I thought he avoided contact more. I thought he wasn't particularly good before he got injured, but he is a franchise legend, and he has been one of the great receiving backs of the 21st century. And I think he probably is a little more of a drain on ETN than the younger guys would have been, theoretically. Now, as I say, if we get into August and the Saints are disavowing that like crazy, I will pay attention. That's a story that could matter if clarity is forthcoming. I'm a little skeptical it is forthcoming, but if it is, I'm willing to change ETN's rank back up a few spots higher among the running backs. So I did have to write an Alvin Kamara profile after all for the forthcoming almanac and also amend the profiles of ETN and Miller and Neal. That is done. We are getting close. The 2026 Harris Football Player Profile Almanac is coming, the first edition on August 3rd. I got an email from Ben B. in Washington, D.C. Hey, Harris. Currently being slow-boiled over here in D.C. My wife's birthday is on August 2nd. Do you think giving her a pre-order receipt to the almanac and suggesting she study up so she doesn't come in last in our home league again would be a good present? Oh, Ben, you shouldn't have done that. Hopefully she doesn't listen to the show. Yes, I think very much if you gave her that receipt and she could wait till the next day and then she has a lot of homework ahead of her ahead of the draft, I think she'd love you all the more. But you know what? Let's give the folks another taste. Let's read another profile. This one from the AFC East, since that's what we're talking about today. One of my favorites, actually, in this profile. It goes like this. It's Drake Maye. Dearest Father, I hope this letter finds you well. I write from aboard my high seas vessel, huddled in the less than comforting embrace of a number 10 New England Patriots jersey, drenched in sea spray and desperately trying not to repeat mistakes of the past. And yet, with my compass needle jammed and the overcast offering no bearing, I fear familiar waters that have previously run me aground. It was but 1 year ago I pronounced myself a believer in the siren's song of shocking youth. I supposed it was the sun on my face and not the heat of false promise. When I reached this point in my journey in the summer of 2025, I cast my lot with a tyke who'd laid waste, who'd made his station appear easy, and who'd bent the qualities of matter to his will during the most unexpected of January expeditions. This precocious younker had performed his magic exactly once, but it was enough for me. His name was Daniels. He made me a fool. Father, this time around it's all so familiar. Again I know not whether I'm pointed, boreal, or austral. Again, a veritable child has presented himself with truly ludicrous promise. Again, it seems nothing should go wrong. I am chilled not merely by my surroundings, but also by coincidence. Dare I nominate another nestling to be my helmsman? In theory, circumstances are contrastive, he said. Daniels, in retrospect, may have been a pony with mostly one trick. His aerial attack aroused some belief, but his sea legs were most alluring. This new boy, Maye, certainly moves well, but it is the aggressiveness of his aviation that evokes most luminous comparisons. It was only one season, but this shaver was poised and maneuverable, coercive and exact. To review his performance is to watch a nipper behave as might a leathery old salt. Watch him swashbuckle against those buccaneers with deep precision. See him out-virtue some saints with improvisational glory. If Maye's privateer logs suggested he'd been skirting Davy Jones's locker for a decade, I'd believe it. Nevertheless, I am at least rudderless, and if you saw my state, you might say terror-struck. This past January, Maye's juvenility showed, and his waters will not be so calm in 26. Last year, his crew was blessed by unearthly vitality, and he himself wielded no particular reputation for heroic deeds. Like Daniels before him, Father, Maye has only done this one time, and now expectations are huge-some. And yet here I am, spinning near blind on the turquoise hydrosphere, once again ready to embrace the risk of the possible. power, touch, mobility, exactitude. At his best, the boy evinces all these. I fear this communique may never find you, and I'll be cast away forever, chasing the new at the expense of the steady. But you schooled me for boldness. You schooled me for belief. And so where some see a tot, I force myself to see that most stupendous of creatures, a footy pajama king. Truly, that was very early. That was like the first day that I wrote profiles. I got ambitious there. Maye's profile also then has a research project that investigates some one-year wonder quarterbacks over the past 20 years, wondering how likely it is we get yet another, because we've been burned here lately with the likes of CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels not being able to follow up their great first season. Anyway, I think you'll enjoy the almanac. I even think Ben's wife might enjoy the almanac. You can pre-order it right now at harrisfootball.com.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, our division-by-division previews of training camps continue. We have talked NFC and AFC South. We talked NFC East just this past Tuesday. Today, as I've said, it will be the teams of the AFC East. There's about to be so much noise and so much hype. What should we be susceptible to? What should we try to ignore? Hopefully, we can get some click discipline going for the footy pajama Patriots, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets. To help me do that, Patrick Daugherty from Rotoworld. He will join. It'll be fun. Thank you again so much for listening today. We are sponsored by Trust and Will. If you have kids, I'm sure you know that putting together a trust or a will is something you should do. Get an estate plan to get yourself peace of mind, but maybe you keep delaying, you keep putting it off. I, for one, I'm very glad for Trust and Will. I don't have kids, but I still wanted to put together an estate plan to take care of other members of my family. Trust and Will offers affordable, attorney-designed estate plans online that you can create in as little as 30 minutes. They made it really easy for me. Assign guardians for the kids if you have kids, asset distribution, healthcare planning. It's something we really should do. I'm relieved to have stopped putting it off myself. Seriously, give it a look. Trust and Will has thousands of 5-star reviews, including mine. Attorney support is available. Let's never have our loved ones have to face the burden alone. Trust and Will, affordable estate plans, priceless peace of mind. Go to trustandwill.com/Harris and get 20% off. That's trustandwill.com/Harris to get that 20% off. Trustandwill, A-N-D, will.com/Harris.
Today's guest.
Too prickly of a personality. Charlie Day, Ringo Starr, Mr. Also Important at Rotoworld. Welcome, Pat Daugherty.
He is Patrick Daugherty. That walk-up music goes back a good 11 years or so. You can find him all over social media. Just look up RotoPat. You can hear him on the great Rotoworld football show with our friend Danny Carter and read him over Rotoworld as well. And now it's so exciting for me, Pat. I have to imagine that this feature was invented with me in mind. The blurbs, the individual blurbs on Rotoworld now have attribution, so I never have to wonder whether you wrote the blurb.
You don't, and now you'll be wondering when I do write blurbs. You probably haven't seen my name on there a ton this summer. I've been doing some other stuff this summer. I blurb a lot more during the season. But yes, at long last, we weren't entirely in favor, but the logic behind it, we all decided it was necessary. The logic behind it, want to project, this is not AI, for instance, where now...
Yeah.
Any uncredited writing at this point is almost just assumed to be AI. Wanted to send the message like, no, this is indeed not AI. And maybe have the writers just take a little more ownership of it in this AI era. But true end of an era. But it felt like time.
Yeah, and I completely understand why the thought would be not to do it, because it's not about us. It's about the product. It's about this. It's about the thing. But I think from a perspective of somebody who once long ago left a big media company and, felt like wanted to be differentiated somewhat, I think the opportunity for the individual writers to develop, a little bit of a, hey, this is a me kind of thing is great. And then also just from a power user of the site, I'm constantly texting you about, hey, this is baloney. I didn't like this one. I can't imagine what it's like in May to be getting an angry text from me saying, "Hey, this blurb that you didn't write, I'm very upset by it." But I do think it as a reader, I like it. I like the idea that okay, this is this guy's take. This is not the state take. This is not everybody at Rotoworld stands behind their take. Yeah,
that is the thing. We liked the state take. We liked trying to have a unified voice as a site, and not that anyone was ever like pressured into writing a take they didn't agree with, but it was just meant to promote like kind of let's try to have a bigger picture outlook, and let's also not send mixed messages. One blurb we don't want to say you gotta add him, and then the very follow-up blurb's like this guy can never be added. It was meant to try to create a bit of a unified voice within reason, of course. But yeah, everything has its time, and it was time to ditch the non-bylined blurbs.
Right. And to be honest, I have to say, I think that state take kind of failed. Like, I think by the end, you were getting too many contrary kind of things on the site.
And that wasn't just by the end. That was the entire time. But it was a noble pursuit.
It was a noble cause. Yeah. Anyway, big fan over here of everything that Rotoworld does, and I look forward to, of course, all your columns. Every time I see one, I tweet about it or I skeet about it or whatever the heck we do. And so you're great, and I'm excited to have you here to talk about the training camps for the AFC East. And we're going to start with my footy pajama Patriots. What can we learn in training camp, or what should we ignore in training camp? I'm going to assume backfield. Well, first of all, we're not going to talk a lot of Drake Maye because you got him where you got him, unless he's hurt. I just read his profile a couple minutes ago on the show from the Almanac. And even like the backfield, I assume you're relatively locked in on wherever you have Henderson ranked, wherever you have Stevenson ranked. I assume it's some level of split because all backfields are some level of split. Let me ask you this. Is there a level of hype on TreVeyon in training camp that could get you to budge off of where you are on those two guys?
I think a fairly minimal level of hype. He's a guy where I would accept even cliches. Like, it's still early enough in his career where I feel like cliches might mean something. Like cliches like he's got more trust from the coaching staff this year, or he's playing faster than he did as a rookie. Like two yearly cliches that we hear that usually don't mean anything, but if they ever do mean anything, it's typically with a young player. It's frequently with a young running back. And two, it might actually mean something. It means less when it's someone who's never produced. TreVeyon Henderson at least produced as a rookie. Had some big games, had some big plays. So it's not like some guy's playing faster who that's just compared to how he looked on the practice squad. TreVeyon is the rare guy where this year I am, even if we're just getting boilerplate quotes from the coaching staff, boilerplate notebook reports from the media, I would take notice because there's not a whole lot standing between him and a bigger role and a lot more fantasy points than he scored last year. And he's a guy where if he just comes out and has the classic good training camp, I really will be paying attention. It could end up meaning nothing, of course, as it so frequently does. But he is in the strike zone, the very limited small strike zone, where I feel like that stuff actually matters. So I am paying attention to that stuff with TreVeyon Henderson this summer.
So I'm probably less so, but I understand where you're coming from. Maybe it has something to do with where we have them ranked. I have TreVeyon like 21 and Stevenson like 31. Are those the neighborhoods
same
that
range. You? I cannot. Okay. Poor guest job by me. I can't quite recall my exact rank, but it is in that exact range.
Yeah, that range. That's fine. Here's why. Like the things that I need to know about TreVeyon, I actually don't think a beat reporter observer will be able to observe, because my concerns with TreVeyon, and again, we're ranking him, 20, 21, 22, whatever. Like we're saying, take a shot on him as an RB2, he might get better, but there were some obvious problems. And it's hard to construct a resume that's like really enticing for fantasy when it's basically like, cool, you either get an 80-yard run or you do, 7 touches for 17 yards, because this kid appeared not to be able to see color, or I don't know. I don't. He
That's called the Miles Sanders, by the way.
The little Miles Sanders, a little Raheem Mostert in the game, maybe. No rhythm, like just kind of running as fast as he could and smashing into things and falling down.
He loves
no
that,
ability to cut back at all, and of course then I've said this a million times on the show, but the pass protection problems where the one thing everybody agreed on as a prospect was, my God, TreVeyon Henderson is the most complete pass blocker you've ever seen. He comes into the league and they quite literally can't trust him on third down. They didn't play him at all. They're like, he's a disaster. So these are all areas where he can 100% improve. I just am not sure that I would believe it coming from like Mike Reese's mouth.
There's only so many open practices, I know, but they will be able to observe is Mike Vrabel screaming at TreVeyon Henderson today. 'Cause this training camp is the one time where the media can actually see this stuff. They get to see real
and there's joint practices. Right.
Yeah, joint practices too.
They matter. Yeah.
And it's another thing with TreVeyon. I'm glad you brought up the pass protection, because that was the horrible incongruency between his prospect profile and then his rookie performance. The fact that he came into the league with it as a supposed strength would lead me to believe he can come back around on that. And it's an area where he can actually improve. And I think the media could hopefully see and diagnose that. But the problem with my points is that even if this stuff happens, it could end up meaning nothing. But he's just in the rare state of his career where it might matter.
I accept it. I accept what you're saying. Let me ask you this. Just like if you get everything you want to hear within reason, not Rhamondre being hurt or them saying, we've cut Rhamondre Stevenson or something, does Henderson have like real legit upward mobility in your running back ranks if you get to hear what you want to hear?
I think so. I mean, I'm not going to put him like higher than RB 18, but I could see a scenario where maybe.
I mean, that matters.
That's a big difference. Going from 22 to 23 would be. Just going from 22 or 23 to 18 or 19 would be a big difference. I would say that is a possible outcome for me.
All right. Pass catching wise, I just don't, unless he's hurt, AJ Brown, it probably is wherever you have him, wherever I have him in our ranks, that's fine. We can kind of, I'm going to plan on glossing over the fawning over AJ Brown. I would love to find someone else with Drake Maye to be excited as a pass catcher. I'm not gonna buy hype on Hunter Henry. He is what he is. He's fine. He's good. He's probably can be a fantasy starter-ish, but just be kind of boring. I just have a hard time imagining what like Romeo Doubs camp hype even sounds like.
Too quick though. On AJ Brown, I will be looking for like, I guess more cliches, but looks healthier than he has in years, looking much smoother than he did the final 2 years in Philadelphia, and just maybe some indication he's reached an accommodation with his knee, basically, because it's been a growing issue, the kind of issue that does not usually go away, of course. But I will be paying attention just to the offhanded health reports of AJ Brown. But I do totally agree with you. I'm not going to adjust my AJ Brown ranking at this point. Like, talk about what we believe to be a finished product in fantasy football. I'd be pretty bad at my job if I were greatly adjusting my AJ Brown rank during training camp. Doubs, the only thing I will be looking for, if we get this drumbeat that he's taking the Steph Diggs role, and for the first time in his career, he's actually getting easier looks, more underneath targets, some easy button usage in the passing game, the kind of stuff he just didn't get in Green Bay. I would pay attention to that because I think the belief was maybe just because of how good they are as players that it was going to be more A.J. Brown doing Stephon Diggs type stuff. But we know they're different kind of players. And maybe just underestimating the degree that Romeo Doubs is going to do that, even though he's always been more of a downfield guy too. That's just been an early talking point coming out of Patriots practices. And if we get this drum beat, like Doubs is doing the Diggs thing, I think Doubs' ADP is a little low. He's basically going as a barely there wide receiver 4. And I think he could be a wide receiver 3. I don't think he has the upside for much higher than like wide receiver 34 to 36 range. He is, I think, the Patriot, even more than TreVeyon Henderson, where I will be dialed in on training camp reports.
Yeah, I'm compiling a list that in each of these 8 shows in July that when the guest kind of like hits on a player, I didn't plan on adding Doubs, but the more you talked about it, the more I'm like, yeah, we probably could believe the reports that say he's just in the slot way more than he ever was in Green Bay. That is a concrete thing that we could hear, and that's the Diggs role. And it was pretty valuable last year. Like, there's a limit to it, but especially in PPR, like, yeah, I'm struggling right now to get him in my top 50 because there's receivers are just all the same down there. But being paired with Maye in a role that we've seen be valuable, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I believe his ADP is outside the top 52, not just your ranking. So not a lot of belief in a guy that, I mean, how much money did he get? Was it like 80 million? Not that tells the entire story. Maybe it was only 64 million. Great preparation by me there. But a lot of money is kind of how I would put it. And so we'll see what happens.
We are sponsored again this season by Wild Grain, the first bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pastas. Let me tell you a little Wild Grain story from last week. I had my latest box. Now the snickerdoodles and the blueberry biscuits were already gone, but I still had a beautiful loaf of slow fermented olive oil ciabatta. I was having a friend over for dinner, kind of a last minute scramble, no time to go to the bakery. And who needs it? Because everything from Wild Grain bakes from frozen. It was 20 minutes in the oven, another like 15 minutes to cool. It is unbelievable how absolutely fresh everything from Wild Grain tastes. It tasted so good. And you're not in a race against time like when you buy fresh at the bakery. You can just bake it whenever you want. Imagine having bakery quality bread, pastries, and pasta at home with any trips to the store. You won't believe it. It is so good. I recommend it. Give it a try. Plus, get $30 off your first box and free croissants for life when you go to wildgrain.com/Harris to start your subscription. $30 off and free croissants for life. wildgrain.com/Harris. We're back with Pat, and we are talking through the teams of the AFC East and their training camps. We're on to the Bills. You know, Josh Allen should have receivers who matter for fantasy. That seems like obvious, but they haven't.
Now you're asking for too much. Yeah.
I know. For a couple straight years where when Khalil Shakir and his 3 yards per catch or whatever, 3 air yards per catch is your big allure. It's pretty gross. They seem to have tried to address it, trading a second round pick very controversially for the little badass DJ Moore. I assume you're interested. I assume you have eyeballs and see that the possibility is out there for a Josh Allen receiver to once again, post Stephon Diggs, actually produce for fantasy. But I also assume you feel burned enough that you're not going to go crazy on DJ Moore. Is there a level of positive hype that could see you, lift him out of your ranks, dust him off a little bit, and put him like 5 to 10 spots higher?
I hate to sound gullible, but I guess yes is the answer. Two things I'm looking for DJ Moore, along the same lines of A.J. Brown. I would not be surprised at all if we hear stuff like he was just never right last year. He was literally hospitalized after a game and then played the following week. I think he was probably not playing particularly close to 100% at any point last season. I guess that's true of probably a majority of players, but it seems particularly extreme in his case that he was out there battling. And I would like to hear that he's just more like the DJ Moore we remembered this year, and that he's finally healthy over whatever was ailing him last year. And maybe the other thing would be, I guess the Bills' offense has kind of gotten away from this, but if we hear like DJ Moore is being allowed to freelance more like he used to, because him and Ben Johnson did not see eye to eye, and I'm assuming that was probably part of it, just not executing the offense the way like a taskmaster like Ben Johnson wanted him to. And then maybe if they're in Buffalo, they're just going to let him do his thing, kind of go out there, get open for Josh Allen, who's one of the best quarterbacks to do that with, even though he's been doing that less in recent years. If we hear him like they're letting DJ Moore do his thing, I would pay attention to that, because I think that was one of the reasons why he failed so spectacularly for Ben Johnson, is maybe he was being forced to play too rigidly in structure, and he's a guy that just needs a little freedom out there once the ball is snapped. So I will be that's one thing. We might not hear anything on it, but that is one report I'm kind of waiting in anticipation of in Buffalo.
I think maybe I baked it into I'm such a DJ Moore honk. I'm absolutely, I'm always ready to believe. I probably already baked that possibility into I have him 20 among standard receivers, like 24 among PPR. I don't really look at ADP this time of year because it's, nonsense and best ball bros and stuff. But I have been told, and I assume, as is usually the case with Moore, that I'm just ahead of the market on him. I'm trying to think of, for me, is there anything other than injury that I can hear that would make me go, whoa, I'm backing off? Probably not. Probably not. I'm such a honk. But I assume you have him lower. Is there a world where he can get as high on your list as I have him on mine?
Well, how high do you have him on yours? It's how high are we
20
talking here? I have him in the lower 20s. There is a world where by the end of training camp, I do make rather dramatic rankings changes sometimes in camp because you get really locked in on your priors over like 6 months of the offseason where there's just nothing actually changing. And then stuff can change at such a dizzying rate in training camp. Sure. A lot of times you're going to have wow, that was pretty dumb to ever have him as low as wide receiver 32 or whatever. So I could see DJ Moore. I have him in more as like a mid-range wide receiver 3 right now. I could see him pushing in to low-end wide receiver 2 status, say 6 weeks from now for me.
All right. Well, I therefore don't have upward mobility, but you might. That's interesting. There's not too much else in the Buffalo training camp that's that interesting. I'll tell you this, though. I said this in my notes to you. James Cook should have a handcuff. He's a little guy. He's been unbelievably durable. He's been fantastic. He got the new contract. I wish nothing but the best. He should go in the fantasy first round. He's going to go in the fantasy first round. He's been wonderful, turned his career around like a year and a half in. He's getting benched for Damian Harris. Like, he has, really changed the kind of running back that he is. He's great, but he's little. And I wish we could get a handcuff out of him because it would make me feel better about taking him in the first round if in the 14th I could take someone. The problem is that Ray Davis, whose rookie film I really liked, limited ability, he became the kickoff returner basically. Is there anything that could convince you that Davis is a legit, like he would inherit the earth if James Cook got hurt in August?
Not really. He seems like the kind of player to me that would just get stuck in an unsatisfying committee. Like Ty Johnson is really involved as a third down back, or even if Ty Johnson gets cut, some other random guy is really involved as the third down back. And then for Ray Davis, like, well, at least he'll get the goal line carries. But I could see that being a scenario where it's just Josh Allen gets even more goal line carries than. Ray Davis, unfortunately, I don't know if he has another gear to ascend in either his role or his ranking.
Well, I think that's a judgment on the player. Let's say they say it. Let's say they say Ray Davis really looks like a player now. We're talking about maybe renewing his contract, like next year. We think he's going to get a second contract, and we think we have our backup in case James Cook gets hurt. Like, teams don't usually say things like that, but if you heard that, would you start to believe, okay, if I take Cook, we're arguing about angels on the head of a pin here. I understand. But like, rather than a judgment about whether you think he himself has the extra gear, if you heard that someone say in Buffalo they had the extra gear, are you programmed to just ignore that?
I wouldn't ignore that, but I guess we're programmed to just know that wouldn't happen.
Okay.
And
all right.
Ray Davis,
you're just saying you don't believe it. Yeah.
Ray Davis, I have been burned by him in the past. I will freely admit that. And there's just the Cook, despite being a slight guy, there are other situations where I'd be more dialed in on the contingencies than James. James Cook just doesn't seem like an area where I'm going to get a whole lot of contingency goodness from the guys behind him.
Yeah, and your point is so right. It's really, the answer is because of Josh Allen. It's just Cook is already walking, as a first-round pick, is walking a dangerous line because Josh Allen can just go, this year I think I want to have 25 rushing touchdowns. And suddenly, and suddenly Cook is like, oh, cool. So that means I get 3? And Josh Allen's like, yeah, you get 3. And then we all cry. So yeah, it is. The answer is probably no. I agree. All right, Miami, the Dolphins. I guess the upside,
the Dolphins and Jets also in the NFL.
That's right. And like, as everybody, well, here's the thing. Let's just have a meta conversation about that because it's going to inform everything I'm going to ask you about with those two teams. Because they're so widely presumed to be horrendous, and they probably will be horrendous, but I say this all the time. I'm trying to make my anticipation of what the teams are like be as little as possible factor as I can because we're wrong all the time. The Patriots would have been on that list last year. The Jags might have been on that list last year. Like the Colts certainly were on that list last year. We're wrong all the time. Am I wrong to enter training camps kind of looking for reasons to find value in an 8th round pick, a 6th round pick, a 14th round pick, because these guys' markets, except for like Achane and Breece Hall, these guys' markets are all going to get so depressed because everyone's positive those teams have no chance? No,
you're not wrong, because value has just become so difficult to find as the market has become so efficient. Like there's still inefficiencies in ADP, but it tends to be in the opposite direction as it used to be, whereas 10 years ago, there could be a young player, basically everyone, quote unquote, knew was going to have a bigger role. And like the drafting public just wouldn't sink in with the drafting public, and the ADP would never adjust. And people like us would like clean up and say our home league drafts because the words never trickled down. That doesn't happen anymore, where sleepers are almost over-indexed now. So you get guys like Bashal Tutin going in the top 24. It's harder to find value than it used to be, unless you're willing. I guess now the value is always with older players. People don't want to draft. But there's going to be value somewhere in this Dolphins skill core, because the only guy with an ADP is De'Von Achane. Like, no one else even has an ADP. So I'm definitely sifting through the Dolphins camp reports. Unfortunately, I hate to be such a naive, I guess what it would be called, slappy. I will be monitoring the Malik Washington reports. I did like him as a day 3 pick coming out of UVA, but if Mike McDaniel, I know there were 2 good guys ahead of it. If Mike McDaniel couldn't make Malik Washington a thing, I'm not really sure why Bobby Slowick was going to, but he is the guy where it could be like Malik Washington caught 70 passes this year, and he averaged 9.2 yards per catch. I'm not sure why they did that, but all accounts the same in fantasy football. I am monitoring Malik and De'Von Achane, by the way. I can't remember if you asked me about De'Von Achane yet or not, but talk about a just bet on talent draft pick. Like him falling to like the RB 9 to 10 range seems insane to me. I know it's such a bad offensive environment, but the Dolphins are the rare team where they're going to have to be committed to the run no matter what the score is, no matter what the game flow is. And I'm going to bet on De'Von Achane's time. I think he should still be in the RB 5 to 6 range, and he's going in the 9 to 10 range.
Yeah, these are 2 very conflicting forces for me, because on the one hand, Achane's size and workload scares the bejesus out of me, and you know there are injuries out there for him, especially I think the worse the team around him, there are probably worse injuries for him because he has to take on more and more. And then yet the market forces that are saying the Dolphins have no chance and he can only max out at 5 touchdowns or whatever. That's just, we don't know that for sure. There's a possibility the Dolphins could wind up being a perfectly okay offense. We don't know.
Even if they're not, who's going to score the touchdowns? It's going to be De'Von Achane.
You know, I guess probably I'm a little suspicious of the who else is there argument, because if you're, there's always someone else. They'll always put some other body in there. Ollie Gordon accidentally gets, 7 touchdowns and ruins everything. But I think I'm more likely to be on the Achane side of things. I can't believe it after the way this has gone. And I've been wrong. I've obviously been wrong on Achane. I've just been terrified. He is not a stick your nose in there kind of runner. And I think it's hard. It's hard to live as a pure perimeter player, but he's just so fast that he's been able to do it. I guess the reason to be a doubter is to say, yeah, but they always had somebody else to distract the defense from the edges. And if they just don't have any other playmakers, then they're going to put, they're going to put corners out there, for God's sake. They're going to put safeties out there. They're just not going to let him run around the edge the way he does. All his big plays are around the edge practically. And I guess that's right. And that's the disaster. That's how it doesn't work out for Achane. But I like what you said. Like, I don't know if this is so much about camp, because it's hard to imagine we're going to get a training camp out of De'Von Achane where the beat reporters are like, I don't know, they might not be using him that much. Like, he's pretty much locked into what he's going to do. But like, he's so small. I don't want 300 carries out of him. I'm happy to have, Jalen Wright take some of the work. Great. Between the 20s. Fantastic. Ollie Gordon, every so often on 4th and 1, please take the hammering because I don't want Achane taking those hits. He's tiny, but I can't believe it. I think I'm probably, I'm with you. I don't think he belongs at RB 11 or whatever.
No, and just I'll be totally fine with him being subbed out frequently on early downs because he's not going to be subbed out at the goal line. The high value touches in this offense, almost by definition, have to be funneled to De'Von Achane this year. And to also, I feel like we'll get a little motivated reasoning from the Dolphins. Like, we just extended this guy. We made him the face of the franchise, basically. Like, he's the one thing the fans have to live for this year. Like damn it, we're going to get De'Von Achane as numbers. Or I'm just not very worried about De'Von Achane.
Right. Well, and so maybe we're going to get to August and feel like, of all things, now I can't believe it, but he's value, whereas I did not call him that previously. You mentioned one receiver, Malik Washington. They have a whole lot of them. They have a whole lot. It seems for sure like I'm going to put this group on the list of things to pay attention to because there's 3 rookies, are there? Maybe it's
there
just
are
2
3
real
rookies.
rookies.
I believe there are 3.
If you consider Kevin Coleman, I can't believe we have to deal with Tevin Coleman and Kevin Coleman and on a podcast in which people can't see my face and I have to go Kevin Coleman. So he's the 5th rounder, but then Chris Bell, who was really going to be a first-round pick, I guess, right? I wrote a profile for him. I learned all about him. Like, he was, until he tore up his knee, this was going to be a mid-first-round pick, and they got him in the 3rd, and there's obviously a question about whether he plays at all this year. There's Caleb Douglas. There's also Jalen Tolbert, who had moments here and there with the Cowboys. There's Tutu Atwell, who never had a moment in his life, so let's not get excited about that. Terrace Marshall is in that camp. Jalen Reagor is in that camp.
Oh my
I just
gosh.
don't even. I mean, there's so many guys that there are dozens of potential, paths that this could take where people start talking about an undeniable type player. Probably none of them are undeniable, and the quarterback is Malik Willis, so maybe it doesn't even matter if they're undeniable. But again, this is the kind of place where if we can get a little bit of a toehold, just a little bit of insight out of these camp reports about how well the rookies are acclimating, about Jalen Tolbert, really taking over that room and looking like an alpha, about Malik Washington, being a dynamo out of the slot. Like, I think that matters a lot because so many people are just going to be dismissing the entire situation out of hand.
Absolutely. And this is like the dictionary definition situation where somebody does have to catch the ball. Like, it's also the extremely rare situation where literally no one is penciled in to guaranteed targets. So I don't know if I've ever seen a receiver core where things were this up for grabs, where you don't even know, like, usually like there's 2 guys who could be the number 1. Like, we just don't have any idea how this is going to shake out. The Dolphins are pretty well covered, so we're going to get a lot of reports on the camp rotations and that kind of thing. One thing I will be on the lookout for is kind of a skill set. If we get some Malik Washington, is basically he's like an extension of the running game receiver. Mm-hmm. I could see that because it's going to be that kind of offense. We know they're not going to be trying, other than like some occasional like take your chances deep shots. They're not going to be pushing the ball down the field. It's going to be a run-based offense. One where they're probably looking for small wins, trying not to put too much on Malik Willis's shoulders. And that is Malik Washington's skill set. So just if we see something along the lines, he's basically an extension of the running game, I would pay a lot of attention to that. But it is the kind of offense where you have to just sift through the really tedious, like, I was out there and I charted, who ran the most routes of Malik Willis under center today. Because we don't have any idea like what the 3 receiver set is going to be, or the 2 receiver set, or whatever. And someone, by definition, someone has to be out there doing it. I don't think they're going to run a 1 receiver set or a 0 receiver set. So it's going to be tedious, but you have to be willing to grind Dolphins training camp reports very hard.
We are sponsored by Lisa, and can I mention my own personal Lisa mattress is kind of my reset button. You know what that's like. Go to bed, kind of filled up with the day, and try and rest and get ready for it all again tomorrow. My Lisa mattress is just so comfortable. It's perfect. I've slept on a Lisa for more than 10 years now. They've really grown. They've got several mattress styles. They've got hybrids and cooling options, beds for kids. They actually have a Lisa Sleep quiz to help you pick which bed is right for you. And if you've been putting off getting a new mattress, I just couldn't recommend taking the quiz more and getting a Lisa more. The most important thing, though, is that just because it's perfect for me doesn't mean it's perfect for you. Lisa knows that mattresses are super individual things, so they give you 4 months to sleep on your new bed. And if it's not a reset button for you, if it's not perfect, they'll come pick it up and they will refund you. Right now, it's their July 4th extended sale, which means 25% off select mattresses when you go to leesa.com. And then if you use the code Harris, they'll take another $50 off the top for 25% off leesa.com. And for another $50 off, use that code Harris. We're back with Pat, and we have one more team left in the AFC East, and it's a Lulu to talk about. I guess the Jets have probably surpassed the Dolphins in the market's assumptions about, well, they've built an offensive line, and they signed a veteran quarterback who I've seen actually be good before, as opposed to Malik Willis, and they have the skill guys, and I don't know. I tend to think that probably both Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson will go high enough that I'm scared. But I'll just say Garrett Wilson. I know what the camp is going to be like because I know every year what the Garrett Wilson camp is like when he's healthy, which is, he looks incredible. You know why? Because he's incredible. But I can't believe that the market is going to once again just go, yep, sold. I'm in. Geno Smith, key to unlocking him. I fear helium for Garrett Wilson's camp stock and therefore fantasy stock that I just don't think I'll believe in.
I can't go back. I can never do this again. And I don't even know if I've ever been like truly in on Garrett Wilson, but I was never truly out. Had shares, quote unquote, sprinkled throughout the years, and the bowl, like when the upside case is that you don't understand. I know everything was terrible last year, but now Geno Smith and Frank Reich are gonna fix it. Like, you just can't. There's only so much time in the world. You gotta let someone else deal with this. Like, I'm not out here grinding large field tournaments. I'm managing like 8 to 9 redraft teams. I have the luxury of just ignoring guys. I'm gonna ignore Garrett Wilson because I cannot do it. Cause is he even good, by the way? Like, is he truly even good?
I think he is. I think he runs a really good route. I think his ball skills are fine, and I think he's like a body control guy, really good. If he was,
he is like, a body control guy, precise route runner too. You're absolutely right on both those points.
Yeah, but like he's had hands problems, no question. I do think he's led a tragic NFL existence by being drafted by the New York Jets, and that's the big problem. But like, for 1 minute, what I saw out of Geno Smith, like if people are romanticizing the year and a half Geno Smith was good in Seattle, like bless his heart, it's great. He had moments, there's no question, but a lot of guys have had moments, and he hasn't shown anything like that in years.
That is the perfect summation of Geno Smith to me. A lot of guys have had moments. Like, you can't hold on to a moment forever. The sun always does set on the day, and Geno. I mean, it wasn't the worst quarterback season I've ever seen, I guess, but it was in the running, what I saw from Geno Smith for the Raiders last year. Worst quarterback season ever from an established player, I guess I should say. Like a guy who's been starting for a while. And I know it was by no means all his fault. The alibis abounded in Las Vegas, but just a truly, truly horrific quarterback performance that I saw from Geno Smith last year. And it'd be one thing if he landed with some kind of Kyle Shanahan up coaching staff. Frank Reich is not that. Aaron Glenn is not that in New York City. And I just don't see how these people are conspiring to save Geno Smith. And I don't see how Geno Smith is conspiring to save Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, and, I started talking about the bottom half of this division, or, the presumed bottom half of this division, by saying I'm looking for value. I want to pay attention to the teams that people consider hopeless. I want to find, because the moment they're not hopeless, you found a fantasy starter in the 7th round or the 8th round or whatever. The problem is that Garrett Wilson's going to still go, I'm told, in the top 20 receivers for fantasy. Yes. There's no value there at all.
No.
Like, I I don't understand how that. I feel like, you talked earlier in the show about finding edges being harder and harder. Totally agree. This is an edge that I feel like you can just sort of pencil in, like ignore everything that's said about Garrett Wilson and don't draft him, and you've obtained an edge.
Ignore everything that's said about Garrett Wilson. But now this part is really critical. Pay attention to everything that is said about Adonai Mitchell. This time it counts. And you mentioned some hand problems for Garrett Wilson. 80 knows a little bit about that. But I do, kidding aside, I think he's like going in the wide receiver 6 to 7 range. I'm a little interested in Adonai Mitchell as a free flyer. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to pivot it, which is to say we want to find guys that we can have in week 1 and week 2 on our team and then immediately jettison for waivers. that it's fine. It's fine to take shots like that. AD Mitchell isn't going to get any training camp hype. I can't imagine a world where people talk about
will.
AD.
Trust me, he actually will.
Well, it's New York. It's a good point.
It's New York and it's fantasy people. We've had our brains ruined by big plays. He'll do like 2 cool things, and then there will be reports, unfortunately.
Well, then let me ask it. Like, I can't see a world where those, because that's going to happen across the league for 23 other receivers. Like, I can't imagine that gets AD Mitchell drafted at wide receiver 40 even. Like, there's he's going to be
Adonai
free.
Mitchell is a guy where we've seen enough reports. Now we have to actually see it on the field.
Fair. Yeah. The point being, though, that there's going to be a million options for free receivers. I don't imagine anything that can come out of Jets camp is going to cause me to go, man, you need to elevate AD Mitchell above all the other potential free receivers at the end. But if I wound up in a position where in a deeper league, I took him as my 7th guy, the last guy on my bench or whatever, and just saw for a couple of weeks, that's perfectly fine. That's way more likely to happen for me than taking Garrett Wilson in the freaking 3rd round or whatever.
Everything you just said, there's nothing I could add to it that would make it a more perfect take. Completely agree across the board there.
And then this kind of, around here we really like Breece Hall. We really don't like the fact that he winds up signing like, why are you doing this to yourself?
What are you doing, man? Like, especially after 2 years of like brick by brick every week. Like, all right, do another cryptic social media post. Now do another one. Now get on another platform and do one there. Like, he had laid the foundation to break out of this jail, and then he just didn't do it.
And I guess there's not training camp news. Well, I'll tell you what the training camp news is going to be because it happened last year. Aaron Glenn saying, hey, you all want to talk about Breece Hall? We got 3 guys here. This is a 3-headed monster. And then, of course, week 1, they come out and Breece Hall plays like all but 4 snaps or whatever. Braylon Allen does wind up getting hurt, so we never got to see the full flower of the plan or whatever. But like, I kind of don't think, no matter how many times Aaron Glenn says that in August, that anyone's real. I felt like last year, people were going, oh, then I'm going to lower Breece Hall. But I feel like fool me once. I just don't think anyone's going to hear that out of Aaron Glenn and go, okay, I'm really worried about Braylon Allen. I got to take Breece. Wherever I have Breece Hall, he needs to go 5 spots lower now. Like, I don't imagine that's going to happen.
Last year, even if you were skeptical, you did have to pay attention because it was the new coach coming in, trying to set the tone. A coach, too, he was a defensive coach, but coming from an organization in the Lions that had a lot of success with the 2-back approach. So you did have to pay attention last year. Then it didn't manifest for whatever reason, the Braylon Allen injury. Maybe chief amongst them, I guess, although he wasn't doing anything before he got hurt. But it's on you if you fall for it this year. Because he's already saying it again. He did say it like a month or 2 ago. And after that contract extension, though, you can just ignore anything he says about it. Because if Breece Hall is not playing 70 to 75% of the snaps, it would be one of the biggest upsets of the fantasy season. Like, they spoke with their wallet. It's not a 3-headed monster. It's the Breece Hall backfield. And I just don't think you have to worry about it.
I agree. And I would like to, who knows what his ADP winds up doing in August on various platforms, because even though he's stable, many of the running backs around him in that RB2 area are very much not stable, and there'll be news all about whoever you want to throw it. Jeremiah Love. Oh my God, Kyron Williams is now tying his shoes on the sideline, and Blake Corum is taking snaps, and
Alvin Kamara's reps at linebacker.
Alvin Kamara's getting, is scared. We talked about earlier in the show, like getting, now that scares me also. Travis Etienne, like, I would love to have Breece Hall fall to a point where he is being punished for the jetsiness, and I can get him at what I consider to be value. Again, because I think people prejudge offenses too much beforehand. As hopeless things seem beforehand, they just wind up not being too often for me to ignore it. I feel like, just like with Achane, I kind of want to be on the buy side of Hall, but it's all going to come down to what the market does with him.
I do. I want to be on the buy side of Hall too, which is scary because I've always been a Breece Hall fader, and not necessarily because I didn't believe in the talent, just because there was just always. He's always swimming against the tide, like swimming against the current. And this year is the first time where, even though it's maybe the worst overall, probably not the worst overall offense environment he's been a part of, it's not a good one. I feel like he has just fewer questions than he's had the past 2 or 3 years. And
Yeah, because he's not getting traded.
Yeah, not getting traded. He's finally
hold out.
He's the guy finally. Like
Yeah.
I don't know how it took this long, but they finally decided. Like, there's no more, like, weird bickering back and forth between Breece Hall and the Jets. He is the New York Jets running back.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will say, I don't care. I don't want the New York Jets running back. And my message is always, you don't know what these offenses are going to be. You know, like am I making a bet that the Jets are going to be a top 5 offense? No. Would I have made the bet that Daniel Jones would lead a top 5 offense for 3/4 of a season last year? I very much would not have. I have an almanac from last year in which I did nothing but poke fun at Daniel Jones and say in every Colts profile that what a wreck this is. It's either Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. And then suddenly, this is just how the NFL works. We get surprised all the time. Good players are good to draft, but of course, we also don't want to overextend ourselves because they could be bad too. Like, the point isn't that everybody could be good. The point is that some could wind up stinking when we don't expect it. But yeah, again, like camp news wise, the Hall news probably is the least important thing you can possibly imagine. But the news of Josh Jacobs and Jeremiah Love and Chase Brown and all the guys ranked around him could really,
even Javonte Williams, Travis Achane, they're all in that same box.
It's all going to matter, and then what that does to Breece Hall will probably change whether or not we want to draft him. Well, Pat, thank you so much for indulging the fascist email. Once again, you've survived. I hope you had fun.
I did. I hope you survived having to wait on me and my children.
Your children are great.
There's a lot of them.
There's 7 or 8. I'm very excited for all of them. You can find Pat on social media. He's all over the place, posting as RotoPat. Look up his stuff. What do you have coming? I don't think you're writing like this coming week, but are you going to do the kind of the same topics of like overarching written columns that you have typically done in the past?
We're finishing up our off-season team preview series. I do have one coming up on Monday, and I forget what it is. I forget which team it is. I haven't written it yet because we've been finishing up our draft guide profiles. We're doing a free online draft guide this year.
Nice.
Details to
come.
Don't
read it.
I believe next week. Don't read it. Yeah, don't read
because it's because you want the people to buy the almanac, obviously. But no, you can.
We
read
probably
both.
have a lot of overlap in our customer base that are getting both, I think. But that's coming later this month. I'm finishing up the running backs today. We're doing it a little later than a lot of places do, because we're not doing a print magazine this year. But a free online guide, that's coming soon. Our team preview series on the site is almost finished. I am doing the Miami Dolphins. No, wait, I already did the Miami Dolphins. I'm doing the New York Jets. Oh, my God. I just prepared for the column during the show. I just pre-wrote it. So New York Jets coming on Monday. Check it out on Rotoworld.com.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you doing it. Thank you. Of course, we'll be back on in August, and we'll talk to you then.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Always my pleasure.
And thank you so much for listening. Let me also thank the 3 sponsors that made this wonderful show possible. 3 good ones, and if you were interested in what I had to say, you can find information about them in today's show notes. We had Lisa, so if you've been putting off getting a new mattress, I don't think everybody listening needs a new mattress right now, but some of you might love it if you'd keep Lisa in mind. Wild Grain, give Wild Grain a try because I gotta tell you, it's insane. It's so good. It's carbs. You got to make your carbs count, but these carbs count. Give it a shot. Like, subscribe. They don't It's not like a long membership fee or anything. Give it a shot. Get one box. And like me, you'll probably be hooked. And then trust and will, not something that's amazing to have to think about, but we have responsibilities, and it is nice to just kind of do it and then be able to put it away and know that everything's taken care of. Again, you can find information about today's sponsors, all the sponsors, at harrisfootball.com. I do appreciate how well you do support the sponsors when you can, and if you can't right now, so happy to have you listening. You're awesome. Thank you so much for being here, for listening. I appreciate y'all so much. So that's going to do it for this episode. Coming up next week, we're doing 3 per week, 2 on the main show. Andy Behrens and I will be aboard the Yacht Club on Monday. And then Tuesday and Friday, more divisions, more previews. The plan is Ben Gretsch, who's great. He'll join on Tuesday. And then on Friday next week, Andy Behrens. It's a double shot of Andy. We're going to get a little bit of free side Andy as well. I don't know if Paywall Andy can hack it, frankly. Can he stop his incessant cursing? Only you'll find out when you listen to next Friday's show. It should be pretty fun indeed. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you next week.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.